Back for our continuing study on the Scarlet Letter. Today we're going to do chapters 5 through 8, and we're going to read a poem by Emily Dickinson. All right, so chapters 5 and 6, we have a time jump where Hester takes up a job as a seamstress. Everyone, while they ostracize her, which means to shun her, and she lives in a little cottage on the outskirts of town by the ocean. The way she makes her money is she seams, she embroiders, she makes dresses and things of that nature. We have a time jump to where Pearl is several years old now, and she's very advanced for her age. There's a lot of interaction between Pearl and Hester, and Pearl is a very difficult child. She's a very difficult child. She's disobedient. She's rude. And this leads people in the community to consider her like a devil type child. Not that she's possessed, but that like, oh well, she's born out of wedlock. She has the mark of the devil on her. That's why she's so difficult. It's hard for Hester to deal with her, but she's extremely intelligent, and sometimes Hester will be like, what's your problem, child? Why can't you just be normal? What child are you? And then Pearl will turn it right back around and say, well, what child am I? Basically, you've never told me who my father is. Why won't you tell me who my father is? Pearl's also obsessed with the actual Scarlet Letter. She traces her fingers on it like that when her mom is wearing it. And so they're setting up this character of Pearl about wanting to know who her father is, and there's a whole lot of symbolism therein about how Pearl is, and that's why she's called a pearl, because she's precious, how she is a mark of Hester's greatest shame and Hester's greatest pride and joy and possession. All right, in chapter 5 we also established that Hester, even though she does well and people want her sewing and her embroidery and whatnot, she can't do things with anything to do with the bride, because Hester is seen as impure and she can't taint what would be a new bride, etc. She also deals with a lot of people who are rude to her, who use her work, and they pay her a small amount of money, and then they're rude to her about it. A whole lot of looking down on people, a lot of, I'm so much better than you, right? You're real arrogant type people, and I'm sure we deal with this all the time in our own lives. I know I have to deal with it. It's just, but Hester, she keeps doing it. She knows, this is the life she lives. This is the choice she makes, and this is the life she has. All right, let's move into chapter 7 and 8. Chapters 7 and 8 are unique in the fact that we start to get a little hint of who Pearl's father may be. It was already hinted at earlier, but in a way you may not have realized it, but now it's really hinted at. So Hester hears that they're thinking, the town people, the town governors are thinking about taking Pearl away from her because of Pearl's behavior. So Hester goes with a pair of gloves that she made to get to the governor's house, to Bellingham's house. And then while she's there, she talks to him and says, you can't take the child from me. And the governor's like, well, from the way she was born and who you are and the way she's acting, she may have the marks of the devil on her. We need to get her away from you. And Hester's like, no, you can't take my child away. And Bellingham's not listening to it. And then Reverend Dimsdale is there. And let's think back. Dimsdale is Hester's preacher. Dimsdale is the one who was begging her, please tell us who the father is. Maybe the father is not brave enough to come forward. And Hester turns to Dimsdale now and says, don't you want to do something about this? You need to do something about this. And it's real weird the way they interact with one another. Spoilers, I'm sure that by now you've probably figured this out, but Dimsdale is Pearl's father. The preacher and Hester, which makes it even worse. So Dimsdale is living with this guilt because he's not claiming his child. He also has abandoned the woman that he made this child with, the woman that he may love. And he also has this guilt on him that he's supposed to be a man of God, and he's broken these rules that the Puritans cling to. So Dimmesdale does make an impassioned speech about why the child needs to stay with the mother, and the governor relents and says, fine. Pearl acts oddly towards Dimmesdale, not in a bad way, but in a way to where she goes up and she holds his hand and she treats him like she treats nobody else. It's obvious. She knows she somehow, somewhere knows that this man is her father. The house. There's three things here with the house of the governor. One, the house is huge and ornate and fancy, and this goes to the theme of the haves and the have-nots. The Puritans talk simplicity. Live a simple life. Live a God-centric life. You don't need anything except God. You don't need material possessions, but he has all of these things. Two, his garden outside, though, his yard is very unkempt. It's symbolic of the Puritan, the way the Puritans are falling, how they're corrupt inside, the way they have this way of doing things that it's corrupt, and on the inside, and the fancy house and everything like that, but on the inside and all that, it's crumbling. Okay. Also, Mistress Hibbins. Mistress Hibbins is Bellingham's sister, and everybody in town knows that Mistress Hibbins likes to practice satanic things. She's supposedly a witch, but nothing ever happens to her. Period. Nothing ever happens to her. Mistress Hibbins is talking to Hester and saying, you need to come out into the woods with us and see the devil and so and so and so and so. She's like crazy, you know what I'm saying? But nothing happens to her. Nothing happens to her. She's kept there. No problem. Why is Hester an outcast for having premarital sex when this woman is openly, everyone knows that she is a witch? The reason why is because she's rich and she's the sister of the dude in charge. Different set of rules for different people. This is a problem today. Period. Has been a problem forever. Okay, so that's what happened in chapters 5 and 6 and 7 and 8. Now let's do our poem. And it kind of focuses on what we just ended about Bellingham and being somebody, and how there's a different set of rules. So this is a poem by Emily Dickinson. We'll do more poems from her later in our study. Material is I'm Nobody, Who Are You? Written by Emily Dickinson. Dickinson is an extremely famous American poet, probably the most famous, maybe most famous female poet ever, not just American. But she had very, very little success in life, and she didn't become famous until after death. So she doesn't know, of course, that what she wrote has touched millions throughout the years. She also had a lot of depression she dealt with. She was a very, very sad person by all accounts of people who knew her and her writings and her studies. So right here it says, Emily Dickinson, who was about 56 when she died, was an American poet who lived a mostly introverted, secluded life, maintaining friendships through written letters. So she secluded herself, kind of like Hester does. She wrote over 1,800 poems in her seclusion, most of which were published after her death. Okay. I'm nobody. Who are you? Are you nobody too? Then there's a pair of us. Don't tell, they'd advertise, you know. How dreary to be somebody. How public, like a frog. To tell one's name, the livelong June, to an admiring bog. I know a lot of people have difficulty with poetry, but this is a very simple poem. Basically, it's saying those who are introverted and those who really don't care about what other people think are better than those who are extroverted and are boastful and who are prideful and who care what everybody thinks and wants everyone to know how awesome they are. She looks down on those people with disdain. Introverts have a real hard time with extroverts. They don't understand them. They think that extroverted people, especially those who like to brag, humble brag, whatever, are just abominable people pretty much. All right, here we go. Following the questions, okay, number 1, the answer is B. Which of the following statements best summarizes the theme? It is better to maintain a private identity than to seek fame and recognition. I'm sure Miss Dickinson would have a huge problem with people who just want to be famous. But people have always been that way. But now with the internet and everything like that, it's even more so. Number 2, what does the word advertise mean? This is how they ask you vocab questions. In this instance, it means C, to publicize. Number 3, what is the significance of line 3 in the overall meaning? The answer is A. It conveys that nobody can experience companionship rather than simple isolation. You don't have to have a bunch of friends. One good friend is enough. Number 4, how does the speaker use diction and figurative language to portray what it's like to be somebody? And how does the impact the meaning of the text? Basically, what it means is that she thinks people who brag and seek attention and go on, or post tons of, like, in this instance, I mean, in future terms, people who post tons of selfies, and like people who quote unquote fish for compliments, and people who post all these things about themselves, not going like trying to help people, like self-help videos or anything like that, but oh, look at me, so and so wanting a pat on the back. Those people are garbage. They are, pretty much. They're garbage. They're needy, and they're just seeking attention because they need to feel some void in their life. All right? That's what Emily Dickinson is saying. And they're annoying. Okay. Down here, what does it mean to be somebody? And what does it mean to be nobody? Well, Dickinson basically means to be somebody is to, even if you're not famous, as long as you are good with who you are and don't want to seek approval from anybody else, and are proud of who you are without needing someone else's affirmation, then you are somebody. In the context of this poem, what makes you who you are? Now, that's just your opinion. What makes you the person that you are? Dickinson is famous for isolating herself from society. In the context of this poem, what does it mean to be alone? We know she had friends. She just had friends in a different way. So what does it mean to be alone? Is somebody alone who has lots of friends, but they're really not friends? They're just acquaintances? It's up to you. All right, now we're going to talk about how this poem relates to Hester. So how do you think Dickinson would relate to the character of Hester? That's why I like this poem, because Hester is completely secluded. And does that mean she's a nobody? Dickinson would say no. She knows what she wants. She's set out. She doesn't need anybody else's affirmation. She's publicly scorned, but that doesn't keep her from living what she can do and appreciating what she has and doing the best of her ability. She's not a victim. She's not playing the victim card. She is being self-reliant, taking care of herself. So Dickinson, I think, would identify well with Hester. Now, today's a very short lesson. What you need to do for the next lesson is you need to make sure you have read through chapter 11, and we're going to do an informational text after that about coping mechanisms. In other words, when somebody struggles with something, how do they handle it? How do they deal with it? All right, so make sure you read through chapter 11. If you don't have a text, get a text. If you can't get a text, go online, listen to it. And if you can't do any of that, that don't keep you from doing the work. As always, it's a great day to be a warrior.